About improving Metro's service by improving Metro's employees, and we have Veronica's going to walk us through. We have 7 minutes to hear from you all, and then we have 7 minutes for questions. If you've got time built in, you're welcome to introduce your team. I just want you to know that we really appreciate all the hard work that you already have done to get to this point. Not everything can potentially be funded, but it doesn't mean it's not a great idea, and it doesn't mean that we might be able to not do it in the future. So we appreciate you all being here, and I'll turn it over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor, for this opportunity, and thank you, panel, for considering our request. I would like to introduce the supporters here of this project. We have Terry Korn from the Sheriff's Office, Anton Etheridge and Jenny Martin from Nashville Fire Department, Don Clark, Keith Durbin from ITS, Dirk Essery, Marla Freer, and myself, Veronica Frazier, from Human Resources. We'll get started right away. Most people who are drawn to a life of public service want to make a difference in the world through that service. Unfortunately, the Metro government workplaces they enter do not always enable them to do so to the best of their ability. Metro government departments and agencies today, by and large, suffer from a number of common issues. We fail to build our employees. Partly due to lack of accessibility, managing, and tracking of relevant and appropriate training. Partly due to cost of training, as classroom-based training can be expensive. One of those expense components is the difficulty for employees to get away from their jobs. And truthfully, while most private sector companies of the size of Metro have addressed these training gaps, we are still feeling the impact of years and years of budget cuts. And nothing is easier or more short-sighted than to cut employee development. We don't plan well for coming or going, and this starts when an employee is first hired. We are unable to offer consistent and thorough onboarding of employees, which slows our employees' ability to immediately start serving the public productively. And it also impacts us when an employee leaves, since we are unsure whether a succession plan has been prepared and a backup has the knowledge and skill sets to step right into that vacated job. Many times this does not happen well, and sometimes, not all the time, to the detriment of Metro's remaining employees and, most importantly, the public we serve. All of this combines to produce a workplace of employees who are not positioned to maximize their potential or enhance their skill sets, thus enabling them to better serve the public at the level expected by today's public. Symptoms we see every day are workers who lack the appropriate skill sets to do their jobs and costly employee turnover. And from a broader business perspective, there are certain aspects of job training that are simply not, did it not come up here? That are simply not optional. The fire department, for example, must track firefighter training devices, such as this breathing unit, which is up there in your upper left-hand corner. I clicked too soon. Departments that deal with healthcare data in a manner must regularly undergo HIPAA training. Tracking both of these types of training represent regulatory requirements that, if not met, can result in significant penalties, including fines, increased insurance rates, and heavy regulatory oversight and monitoring. In many cases, this is how this very critical component of training oversight is currently being managed. Yes, in many cases, tracking is manually done through siloed Excel spreadsheets that may be fraught with error and that are exceedingly difficult to derive an overall picture of what's going on with Metro's training or of an individual employee. To give you an idea of the breadth of training required, here's a sample listing of many of our mandatory classes, and this is by no means exhaustive or complete. So there's a lot going on, as you can see. Recognizing these problems. Our 4 agencies began working collaboratively towards, that's hard, okay, toward a solution to these issues for our employees and the public we serve. When this was mentioned to other departments and agencies, 16 more expressed an active interest in such a solution. So you have 20 metro agencies with the majority of employees who support, want, and need this request. I'm now going to pass the baton to Keith Durbin to further discuss the solution. Thank you, Keith.
Sure. After several years in a planning stage, we'd like to propose the implementation of a learning management system, or an LMS. We feel this fits really nicely with Mayor Berry's stated commitment to taking care of Metro's employees. In the HR industry, an LMS can have a number of definitions and features. Once implemented here at Metro, we are excited about the following capabilities that address the opportunities Veronica talked about. At Hire, HR managers will be able to not only assign training, but other activities as well to employees in an organized and managed fashion, greatly improving and standardizing that process for employees. The solution will provide for training delivery through a web-based interface that includes video. Departments will track and report on trainings in multiple dimensions, not only for web-based trainings, but for classroom and others. The system will incorporate purchase training as well as departments to create their own. And finally, training can be scheduled through HR departments or other employees. And based on these requirements, the team has researched LMS implementations and received a number of preliminary quotes, though we've not gone through any RFQ process yet. So this representative $3 million figure would support 10,000 Metro employees in 50-plus departments and agencies over a 3-year period. It includes one-time capital costs, an enterprise application support person within ITS, and ongoing licensing and support. Not explicitly included in this, but assumed will be resource time allocated from HR and departments who are implementing this to design and grow the solution. So how do we propose measuring success? First off, based on the wide variety of departments and types of training, part of that time will be looking at how to do so. Citizen satisfaction and productivity align well with most of the constituent service hub and the PIP we just saw. Employee engagement and reduced employee turnover can either be measured by central HR or departments, and regulatory compliance is already being measured where required, so we should be able to see trends. Then to wrap up, we'd ask that you support the funding for this transformative LMS, which will not only support Metro employees, but also add one more layer to the effort to provide excellent services to our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Panelists.
So obviously we have some training requirements now that are going on. So help me understand again how this will be different going forward than how we do it today. I'm not suggesting any way that we do it well today.
Sure.
But I just want to see what do we get out of this?
So I'll give it from my perspective, then I'll let Veronica from her perspective. As a department head, I have to track everything that we do that is not absolutely required. The things that are absolutely required by HR, they're special cobbled together fields that weren't meant to do that in our current EBS system. Anything that I require is tracked in spreadsheets that are kept somewhere. Multiply that by however many departments. So we can't say today that Dawn Clark received these trainings over the course of her time here, and the impact based on those trainings are these things. From a regulatory perspective is where it really starts getting scary, and we've had incidences where, because we have not been able to prove that training has happened, we have been dinged by regulatory agencies. HIPAA is another area of regulatory concern that we have to do training, and currently those are being tracked individually in departments and agencies with no sort of overarching review, which I don't want to underplay the regulatory aspect of it, but it is certainly something we'd like to take care of with this as well.
I don't see the police up here. So talk to me about, do they do something different? What do? Do they have a system?
They are one of those 16 departments and agencies that express some level of interest when we've started talking about this. We started working on this 2 or 3 years ago, have a bunch of requirements, but the primary drivers of this this were myself, HR, sheriff, and the fire department. But others, again, once we put out the word, and we've talked about this at meetings, that others expressed a lot of interest in coming in this should something happen.
Well, again, I asked, do the police do something that's different right now? Do they have some kind of a tracking mechanism that they are using?
I'm sure they have their own, just like all, as Keith mentioned, all departments have their own. The only metro-wide tracking that we have right now is those trainings that are required by mayoral, executive order, civil service, and HR does that and can send that information out to agencies. But I think Keith framed that correctly when he said hobble together through our EBS system. I think you have an opportunity. I just would say, imagine a manager in Metro who has 4 or 5 employees that he or she supervises. He's trying to mentor, help those employees enhance their skills, et cetera, et cetera. Perhaps one employee is not mustering quite as fast as they should. That manager can go online. It doesn't matter what department he is. He can look at those employees' training record, because that's clearly a component that we want to, that helps employee development. Perhaps that employee transferred, worked at finance, worked at HR, now is at another department. That training record follows that employee, and that's not unusual in Metro for employees to transfer over. He can see, well, this employee hasn't had the training opportunity that perhaps others have had. Look at what training opportunities are available and help that employee. Not only that, an individual employee will be able to access their training record. They can help have some control over their own professional career path, what training they want, what they want to pursue. So it helps us at a management level and an employee level across all agencies in Metro. We've never had anything like that.
I've got a couple questions. The first one has to do with, generally, you would have an HRIS or human resources information system that would be available to whatever the business or organization is, and this learning management system would be a component of an overall initiative like this. So I'd like to know your thoughts of, is this the first step at trying to move in that direction? And how would we know if this would be maybe, how would it be integrated into an overall system later on? Or are we getting ahead of ourselves or anything with this?
So we've had lots of conversations, and Dawn is integral in all those work. So we very much see this as one of a piece of the puzzle that does not preclude. It could come before an HRIS module. It could come after. The integration points are all there, and we fully expect, whether we do that first or this first, either way works.
So if this component of it is $3 million, when you add in all the other
over 3 years,
how much is
10,000 employees.
How much is that?
How much
this is just one component of an overall HRIS system, and this is $3 million. I'm just what's the bigger ask? What's the bigger ask that follows?
So one of the other capital requests we have in is that analysis. And Talia, you're aware that there are conversations about moving from dual ERP systems, which we have today, into a single consolidated ERP system. So we've got a capital request in there for the study of that. Again, a $2 billion a year enterprise with about 22,000 employees that are included in it. I think we're asking for $600,000 for that study itself. And so we don't know what a fuller, larger implementation would be of pulling those things together over the next year, 2 or 3.
I would like to add, training, and especially the regulatory training, is still going to go on in Metro, regardless of before or after if we get the information system. I look at this, and I'm not a technical person at all. As you could tell, I had a tough time with the clicker. But I see this as the I-beams, the foundation of a training program to help departments manage and see what training opportunities are out there and what they can offer employees.
Do you have any feedback for us in terms of all of the training requests we've gotten from the departments here recently as to
Well, we continually have training requests.
Last question.
Other than regulatory training, are you talking about just building skills among your workforce? Have you looked at solutions like offering lynda.com, or is this compatible with that? I know a lot in the business community, they use a lot of lynda.com courses and purchase corporate access to that, and then require or suggest that employees take advantage of the trainings on there.
Lynda.com is one of the solutions that is a potential answer to this. That provides a certain type of training, but we also have, and Jeannie could say more than I could, so in a place like the fire department, each piece of equipment has required very specific training that you're not going to find, like that device thing.
So this would be compatible with that type of training, not just regulatory training.
Absolutely. So this is provide the broad spectrum. Should the hub PIP be funded? So there is a large employee training aspect of that. This provides us with a platform to build our own, to purchase if we choose to, and then even include video and deliver that training as opposed to in a classroom setting.
Right. The reason I ask about lynda.com, it has everything from how to incorporate innovation into your planning, how to manage employees, how to, all the way down to admin. But it has a lot of leadership kinds of things, and I was wondering if this plan intended to incorporate something like that.
Fits right in.
Okay, thank you. Time, guys. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.